Alright, so if you don't know who I am, I'm one half of Corvidae. My name's Nathan, go as Dabura. Been around for a little bit, some of you may know me, some of you may not. But anyway, this video it's just in response to what Spunj had said earlier today in regards to why players should pretty much disregard contracts. And I just want to come forward and say why both contracts and contract buyouts are important, and why Spunj's statements are kind of a kick in the teeth to both the organizations that are doing it all and the community as a whole. So first off, I'll just start by saying this is not an attack on Spunj at all. I have a lot of respect for Spunj and what he's done and what he's been able to achieve, and in no way am I trying to ridicule him as a person, but I am trying to ridicule that statement and that mentality. So what he said I find wrong, but yeah, like I said, as a person I've got no issue with him and wish him all the best. But his portrayal of everything and how he feels it should run is so far from the truth, it's not even funny. So he's been one of the very few people who's been lucky enough to get the opportunity to go overseas and experience these really top end ways of how this entire industry should be operating. And yeah, he's got a couple valid points. If it was one of those regions, I wouldn't expect anyone in North America or Europe or even Asia, nearly to an extent, to sign any contract with, particularly a buyout in this sense, to sign any contract with a buyout without getting paid, because those areas are kind of developed. So that's kind of the standard they're at. They've set the standard, and that's just how it is. If you want to get involved in that game, by the game I mean the industry, in those regions, and you have to come to play. That's just how it is. Whereas our region is so far from that. We are so underdeveloped and we have so much more to do. And sentiments like that are really just going to set us back. I find what he's saying very harmful to the growth and the progress of our community. And I'll go into details as to why. So, let's start with the crux of the situation, saying contracts are not important. Alright, so contracts exist in any service. They're a necessity in any service. Alright, so how it works is even a verbal contract, for example, an exchange of service. So, okay, I want to get my car fixed, how much it's going to cost. They say this much. Once they do the job, they get paid, and they only get paid that much because that's what was agreed upon. But if you go even further than that, and this example is pretty valid, although it's completely outside the realm of exactly what we're talking about. But if you go to test drive a car, you sign a contract, right? You've signed a contract saying, yeah, if X happens, then Y result, then Z is the outcome, whatever it may be. It's a necessity, and overall, you sign a contract to say, this is what we expect, and this is what we provide. And end of story. That's what a contract is. There's nothing more to it. Now, I suppose to an extent, NDAs can also be classed as a contract, and do his statements cover that as well? Like you can just go blurt out whatever you want. I mean, if a big company come in over the top and said, I need you to sign this NDA, it's a contract stating you will not go and talk about what we've discussed right now. Oh, but they didn't pay you, so Spunj says, don't worry about it, boys. Go blurt out the secrets. Now, in some NDAs, they'd probably say, we'll take you to court, we'll sue you, whatever. But in general, it's just an agreement saying, please don't say anything. We've given you the respect to give you this information. Now, we would like it in turn. Which is how contracts in our community work. Everyone says, okay, this is what I'll provide. This is what I expect from you. Let's just respect each other, and the bond moves forward from there in a positive manner. Okay, so there's that. Now, Spunj's statements, you're not getting paid, screw the contracts. I don't know how you expect to get to a level of professionalism if organizations don't have a say on how you operate and how things need to be run, right? So players just can't run around willy-nilly and do whatever they want, act however they want. I think a lot of organizations kind of set a standard of behavior and professionalism, and without contracts, they don't have the control to do that. Sure, you can just say, I'm going to dump the team, you're not what I want, you're not acting the way I want you to, it's just not working out for us, let you go. But then how many people do you go through until you find a good bunch that's actually going to do the right thing by you? It's very hard. Whereas a contract, you kind of have some leverage there, and you can control to an extent what you need them to do. It's not to be a dictator. It can be, and some people operate like that, and that's fine if that's how they want to do it. But don't forget, these people have signed this, right? This is their choice to sign it. No one's forced them to do it. So if it is run as a dictatorship under that contract, that's what they've agreed to. And sorry, but that's just how it is. Now, personally, I wouldn't run it like that, and I don't know of many people that do run it like that. It's pretty free-flowing majority of the time, so it'd be very hard to come across anyone that would just, be professional off the bat without having a contract to kind of steer them in the right direction. Now, on top of this, sponsors will not get involved if there is A, no security, B, no marketability, and C, just a trash attitude. There is no reason for them to get involved if you're walking around just, talking trash on everyone in the community and outright calling this guy a dickhead, or he's a retard, and things like that, politically incorrect statements. Like, if you can't control that, why would anyone with money invest? You need to treat this as any other sport, and not the exact same as sport, by the way. That's another topic that I'll bring up at another time. But it needs to be treated as a professional industry and a professional sport. You need to have control over what they do and what they say to some extent, and steer them in the right direction, so that people with money come in and go, we can market this. We can have some form of value by getting involved in this. You're not going to get any value by going around treating everyone like trash and talking shit and being a general dick or cheating or whatever it is. These things are not marketable. People with money don't want that. If you don't have a contract, your team can leave you at any point and you have no say over that. The platforms aren't going to back you because there's no contract. So let's say CG, at the moment they don't really do anything anyway, but CG is, or whatever other events there are, and other platforms, those people aren't going to back you because there's no contract there. So it's like, who cares to you? So if your team dies every couple of weeks, why would anyone give you money? Like, we want to get to a level where we can sustain the growth of our industry and we can provide all the players with the money they probably do deserve. No doubt, some people definitely deserve to be paid, but have they earned it? That's the thing. You need to earn it. You can't just go, I'm a great player, give me 100 grand a year. That's not how it works. You can't sit there and play the game and then just log off at night and expect money. That's not how this industry works. Okay, so there's the money aspect out of the way. Now, let's say, let me just gather my thoughts. I've been thinking about this all day, so, not all day, the past couple of hours, but kind of scattered trying to structure everything properly, so give me a second. Alright, so Spunj said on the other side of things, let's say, particularly the ones that don't have, particularly the ones that do have buyout clauses. Now, for a contract to be legally binding, and for it to be upheld in the court of law, there needs to be an exit clause. So a buyout is a great exit clause because the player has a way to negotiate a way out, and the organization has a way to make money, or at least recoup some of the losses. Now, without a buyout, the only other standard practice would be a time frame, which means you've signed for 12 months, you are here for 12 months, which is not ideal because if you want to get out, there is no other option but to wait that out unless you get a release, which, why would they release you unless it's on good terms? So that seems like a ridiculous notion to say, especially if they've got buyouts. The buyouts are actually beneficial to players. I mean, in some circumstances, and I'll put my hand up, buyouts are out of this world, and there's good reasons for some of these. In some cases, there's terrible reasons, like, I did a logo for him, give me $10,000. Like, okay, that's a bit ridiculous. But a a buyout is actually a really good thing. It gives you another way to get out of a contract as a player, which is awesome. I don't know of any other way you can work around that. I'm sure there are ways, but what would be a benefit to both the player and the organization? I don't know. And that's something I'd like to get some feedback on. Hopefully Spunj has an answer to that. I'm not entirely sure what the goal is there, but to say that anything with a buyout you shouldn't touch, I think that's definitely a step in the wrong direction, and that won't benefit anyone at all. Maybe the buyouts can be lower, maybe the negotiations behind them can be better. As far as I know, the buyouts haven't even been that extreme in majority of the cases anyway. I think it's just people getting upset when, they've sapped the organization for everything they can, and then when they want to get out, it's like, oh, hang on a second, I can't. You can't take the good and ignore the bad. It might be bad to you, but that's just the way it is. Now, the other thing with contracts is, as a whole, contracts are vitally important because they get to teach you like proper business etiquette and how the real world works outside of this region. If you just think you can jump around teams, like good luck if you want to go to NA or EU or wherever that's actually developed. If you're under a contract and you just think, stuff the contract, I'm out of here. Nah, bruh. Like, they're going to hit you. They're going to take you to court. They're going to stop you from playing. The platforms aren't going to let you play. There are rules for this. You can't just do that. So having this structure in Australia and New Zealand or the Oceanic region as a whole, having this in place now at an early stage teaches proper business ethics and how things work and how you should treat contracts and the like. So I don't know why you would ever say this is a bad idea. This is just completely irrational in my eyes. And I think Spunj being at the top echelon of gaming for quite a while has kind of diluted his way of thinking because he's been out of loop for so long and it just seems misinformed and misguided. I don't know what the cause is, but it's just in the wrong direction. I think, yes, for NA, EU and other developed areas, fine. But for here, that is a complete wrong way to look at it. And his statement targeted Australia and New Zealand, so he can't say it was about anything else. I think he's just made the wrong choice in what he was supposed to say, in my opinion. Maybe he meant it in a different fashion, I don't know, but it was wrong, and there's a big uproar. And the funny thing is, players generally all backed it, because players want to have control. But the simple fact of the matter is, without us, what do? I know a lot of you don't have money. You can't afford to do these things, fly to lands, establish yourself as a business, or get all the graphics up and these logos and the jerseys and all. You simply don't have the money for that. And that's where we come in. We're not here to make a buck. We're not making any money majority of the time. We're here because we're passionate about it, and that should be supported across the board. We support you because you're passionate and you want to become a professional. So, yeah, a little bit of mutual respect will go a long way in those aspects. Alright, which leads me to our next point, which I was kind of just talking about. Organisations in Australia, in the Oceanic region, sorry, I keep saying Australia, I'll include you all. Organisations in the Oceanic region are, majority of the time, probably 99.9% of the time, running at a loss. And this is just the nature of the beast at the moment. And we know that we're going to run at a loss, and it's our choice to run at a loss. Well, sorry, it's our choice to run, not at a loss. If we could choose, we would not be running at a loss, but we know it's going to be at a loss, so we do it anyway. We don't need to be here. We don't need to be supporting you. We don't need to be doing all these things to help you as a player do as much as you can and go as far as you can. It's like we're here like because we want to be, we don't have to do it. So having that attitude of don't worry about the contracts or organizations mean shit, that's completely rubbish, and that's not going to get you or the region very far at all. I think that's a poor attitude, and if we want to improve and progress as a region and actually get this area kick-started and up to the level of everyone else, then we need to throw those types of thoughts in the bin and just move on from there. And on top of that, alright, let's say, okay, so Spunj mentioned, yep, okay, well, most of us did pay for our own way back in the day. Well, maybe not most, but he tagged a couple of people and said, well, it sounds like what we used to do back in the day when I mentioned, players can pay their own way if they don't want organizations. That's fine. Maybe some of you can. But young, chaotic, 15-year-old, or maybe he's 16 now, I'm not sure how old he is, but he's young, alright? I don't know if he's got money for that. Where's he going to drum up like $500 or upwards to go to a land that's going to earn him $200? You know, that he's going to run that at a loss. So that's completely not beneficial to him. 15-year-olds don't have the money. Majority of our community, particularly the competitive side, are either young teens or young adults, and they probably don't have the financial support to be able to do that. Their parents may not back them, and there's a whole range of issues. I know when I was younger, I'd be lucky to get $3 to go to the net cafe for an hour once a year. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have a lot of money, and I tell you right now, if I ever managed to get to a land and I qualified, I wouldn't be going. My parents, not a chance they'd be paying for it. So an organization would have been amazing. I would have loved that. And I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to that. And there's other issues, other underlying issues that Spunj is completely ignoring. Such as the fact that a lot of people that play games are here for an escape. You know, they're having troubles at home, or financial troubles, or troubles in a relationship. You know, it's a coping mechanism for them to escape reality and just have some fun. Now, if those issues translate into not being able to go to events, organizations can help with that. The financial side, the management side, taking a lot of stress off their chest. Even to an extent, some counseling. Yeah, sure, it may not be professional, but at least, you know, they can offer some advice or just be there to talk to. There's a lot of things that organizations help with. It's not just, okay, they should give us money. That's completely trash. So, you know, if those issues are part of the reason why they're here, then I doubt they're going to be able to go to land, or, you know, have the drive to go to land, the motivation, the financial stability. There's a lot of issues that stop that from happening. So I think these need to be taken into account as well. That's pretty important. I don't know of many people that are open about it, so it'd be hard to judge if that is a big issue in our community, but I imagine there'd be a few people that probably struggle with these things, particularly the financial side. I think the financial side's a big factor. Parents don't have, you know, like I said, $500+ to fly you to an event. You know, it's a tough world we live in. Not everyone's got money to throw around. So the size of the community we have, it's definitely going to come to the front line every now and then. Now, all right, I'm just going to rattle on about a few of my experiences being in organizations. So I used to run Climax Crew back in the day. I was very young at the time, didn't know much about running an organization, but I did the best I could. And I ultimately got screwed over and made a whole $0 on that. In fact, I probably lost a couple $1,000. So I learned a lot. I restructured, come back with Corvidae, really structured, really planned, really organized, and it's been successful so far. Now, when I say successful, I don't mean I've made money. I am probably 30K deep just this year on Corvidae. So I'm running at an extreme loss. I'm not even close to making money. I don't get funding from anywhere. This is all out of my pocket. And that's my choice. I'm not blaming that on anyone. That's what I want to do. And I believe I will be able to make some money out of this in the future. But for now, I'll just keep funding. Now, all the things that we've put forward in Corvidae may not be essential to being a successful organization, but we feel it's something we should be doing and what the community needs. So there's a whole range of things we do. It's not just funding top tier teams to try and make a buck. And I think there's a lot of other things that can get you success outside of winning. I think that's a misconception that I'll make another video on at a later date. But, you know, we do a whole bunch of things like grassroots development, like you would have seen with our Jays team. We do a lot of content creator stuff. So we get a lot of particularly young content creators who probably don't have the platform to advertise themselves, or just need a little bit of help getting things done, maybe with some equipment or whatever it may be. We help with that. Obviously, we do the general organization stuff, so graphics, jerseys, the flights, the advertisement, the marketing, a little bit of counseling if it's needed, the management. So, you know, we do all that kind of stuff, and I think that's quite vital to the success of our region. You can't just play the game and log off. Like I said, it's not about that. And the people that get money, and I'll use Cloud9 as an example, they might not be winning a whole bunch of stuff, but they're hella marketable. They know what they're doing to make money, right? And they're doing a bunch of stuff that makes them money and makes them successful. It's not all about winning. So, I think some of these things are important, and a lot of people are overlooking this. And that's why contracts are important. If I'm spending this kind of money and I'm trying to develop the scene and I'm trying to do all these things, I would like some control over whether you're going to leave my team for no reason or whatever it may be. And like I've gone above and beyond, right? And I'm quite comfortable in saying I've probably done more for the teams I've had than majority of the orgs can and would do in Australia. So the CS team, I built a computer for someone and drove it to their house. I then upgraded that computer for them. I bought a computer for someone else. I upgraded 2 more computers for another player. I was online more than they were. I was a part of the coaching. I was part of the management. I was with them every step of the way. When tournaments were on, I would be up in the morning. I'd give them all a call, say, look, boys, your game's about to start. Get up, have your breakfast, have your shower. Let's get on. Let's go. So, I was heavily involved. So to say that I've invested so much and then the players can just run off, I think that's completely ludicrous. I think that's wrong. And I don't think players should have that ability. I think there needs to be some form of either compensation or an agreement of some kind to say, well, obviously an agreement would be a contract, but to say, okay, you can't go anywhere and hopefully the platforms will back it because XYZ, or if you do want to go somewhere, these are XYZ, how to make it happen. And, like I said, the things that we've done at Corvidae probably aren't essential to be successful, quote unquote, but it's what I feel needs to be done, and I've been burned for it, and that's fine. I'll probably be burned a million times more before we actually make it, and I'm willing to live with that. But I think contracts are super vital to stop these things from happening. I don't think it's fair for all those things to be put in place for then a team to just ditch you for no good reason. If I seen that happen to anyone else, I'd really feel for them, because I've been in those shoes and it's really not fair. So that's really why I resent Spunj's statement there, and a lot of the other organisation owners did too, and they all got up in arms. There's a few people that aren't in teams, I won't say any names, but a few people that aren't in teams who chimed in and said, yep, that's completely stupid. And there's people in teams that said, yeah, Spunj, spot on, woo! And majority of those people were players, funnily enough. Players want control, but they also want the funding. You can't have both. It's got to be a balance of, okay, you can get money, but we've got to have some control. And it's the same when partners or sponsors or investors come on board. They don't give you money and then just let you run it. If someone wants to give me $500,000, I'm sure they're going to want a piece of the pie and some form of control over how Corvidae operates. And that's simply how business works. And this is a business after all. As much as it's a passion first, it is a business. Now, with sponsors will not get involved if you are unprofessional, unstable, unmarketable, and they most certainly will not get involved and throw salary money around to a team that's not recognized as a business, okay? Now, I've mentioned some of these things a few minutes ago, but it's so important and so vital to how we continue. So if you're changing rosters weekly, or if you're not an actual business, or if you're not marketable because all you do is play the game and then log off, where you're going to get money from? Who is going to give you money? I don't know anyone in their right mind that would just throw money at a brick wall like that. That is completely stupid. And I know for a fact that if you're not a registered business, you're not going to get $500,000 a year. They're not just going to put it in, Joe Blow bank account at the Commonwealth Bank. Yeah, here's 500 grand. And if they did, they would also want you to sign a contract. So, I mean, I don't know what that statement's supposed to enforce. Like, you need money first before you act. Sorry, not act, before you are professional. You need to be professional. You need to earn the money before you get the money. No one gets paid before the job is done. And that's all I'm trying to get at. You need to actually be professional and show you're worth the money, and then they'll come in over the top with the money. And a part of doing that is joining an organization, signing the contract, following the contract, and having mutual respect for each other, working together to get to that stage where, hey, look, these guys, we could probably make a buck if we put some money into them, and then sponsors come in. That's simply how it works, guys. Now, Spunj being one of the most influential players to ever come from Australia, it's a little upsetting to see him kind of disregard everything that's been going on and kind of just throw it all in the bin and to say these things. He's got so much power over how this community thinks, and he may not realize it, but a lot of people look up to him and they'll probably take on board everything he says. So for someone with so much power and influence to come out and say something so ridiculous, I think is wrong, and it's a real big kick in the teeth to everyone that has been putting in work. And it's simply not fair. I mean, everyone should have the right to protect their investments. If I'm investing in a player, or any other organization's investing in a player, they have a right to protect their investment, and that happens via contract and buyouts. It's just how it works, and I don't agree with Spunj's statement at all. Like I've said multiple times, I think maybe if he worded it better or meant it in a different direction, other than don't sign it, pretty much disregard it, I think it probably would have been more effective. Creating a discussion on the topic is probably a better idea rather than outright saying it. But alas, here we are. So going forward from here, I'd prefer to start a discussion and work towards a solution on this rather than throw one idea or the other in the bin. So perhaps alternatives to the suggestions Spunj put forward. So I think contracts are vital. I don't think they can go anywhere, but perhaps an alternative to buyouts might be a good idea. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if anyone has any alternatives, feel free to put those forward. How can we make this venture better for everyone involved, both organisations and players? Because it's obvious that there is a bit of mistrust there between the two parties, and by all rights there should be. Players have been shady for a while, and so have organisations, so have platforms for all money. So I think there's a lot of things we need to work on, but to get to this level of the other regions, we really need to start having a discussion about these things and how we can encourage both players and organisations to do the right thing, and what we need to do moving forward from this. I'd like some input from everyone, and hopefully a response from Spunj. Look, brother, I've got nothing against you. I appreciate everything you've done for this community and how far you made it. I appreciate you as a talent and as a person, but that was a trash comment, mate, and I think we should definitely have a discussion about it. If you don't want to respond, that's fine. Maybe hit me up one-on-one and let's have a chat. If not, let's let the community in on this and see what they have to say about it. Anyway, I've been Dabs.